Welcome to the GamesNet Berlin Europe podcast. Here, we speak with extraordinary games industry professionals and listen to their story, to learn all about what they've built and who they are. GamesNet Berlin Europe is the international games industry initiative of MediaNet Berlin-Brandenburg, the networking association for the media, creative and digital industries in Germany's capital region. My name is Simon Ohler, and I will be your host for this program. Today, I'm speaking with Philomena Schwab. She's a co-founder of Stray Fawn Studio, who made games like Niche and Nimbatus, and who are now working on The Wandering Village. Yeah, that's that game with the village on the huge walking creature. As a quick note, a wild co-host appears in this podcast. Yeah, so from now on, I'm not going to do these conversations on my own anymore, but instead with the very knowledgeable Florian Mazout as my co-host. He's the project manager of GamesNet Berlin Europe. More about that in the episode. You will hear us speak with Philomena about what she and her team are working on right now, how she became a game developer against all odds, her secrets for Stray Fawn's incredible community building and Kickstarter success, why they brought Niche to mobile as a premium game with ethical monetization, and how they manage a very egalitarian team with equal pay across the board. We also hear about Stray Fawn's co-working space and the general state of the Swiss games industry landscape. And of course, we hear about Philomena's life, how she grew up, why she cultivates a gratitude journal, how she manages her time, what she wants to do better, and so on. You know, we ask the good questions. And as you might have noticed, there is no part 1 or part 2 for this one. From now on, we're going straight into the full episode, hopefully to your liking. And again, you will hear more about that in just a moment in the intro of the episode. If you would like to, you can subscribe to this podcast on whichever platform you are listening on. We would greatly appreciate it if you would be interested in that and then do that. So please enjoy our conversation with Philomena Schwab. Hello and welcome. Today is a good day because it is a day of change. I am here with our guest today, Philomena Schwab. Hi, Philo.
Hello.
Hi. But, or should I say, and we are not on our own today, because I'm also here with a new host who will join me for the show from here on out. And it is, of course, none other than Florian Mazout, project manager of GamesNet Berlin Europe. Very dedicated listeners will know him from the outro of the show. Hi, Florian.
Hi, Simon. Nice to be here.
Very nice that you're here. And the reason you're here is because you are actually the person who has all the proper insight into the European video games industry. And you've been the person selecting the guests and giving me pointers about them. And, you know, when we were thinking about the quality of the program, we thought that more insight into the industry and the business of our guests was missing because, well, I'm not as deep into the scene and the industry and what everybody does as you are. So I'm very much looking forward to your up-to-dateness and industry expertise, and I will continue what I do best and make sure we bring you timeless biographical and maybe some philosophical insights from our guest's personal history. Sound good so far?
Sounds good.
Very nice. So another thing for the housekeeping here, we also decided to get rid of the splits in the episodes. We previously always split our episodes in two, trying to kind of separate the business and personal topics, so to speak. But we noticed that everything tends to intertwine. So we're going to keep it to one organic episode with a coherent story where we talk about what's what and what comes up. And that means that our release schedule will move to once a month instead of every 2 weeks. But you have like one full episode. No cliffhangers. We want these changes to be in favor of our guests and, of course, in favor of you, the listener. So we hope you enjoy that. And if you feel so inclined, please, of course, subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to listen to podcasts. maybe leave us a comment or feedback. Do it on the platforms like iTunes, or we also said you could email Florian directly because he's really working a lot on this program. His email address is masut@medianet-bb.de. That's MASUTH @medianet-bb.de. You will also find this in the description of the episode. So we really want to hear from you and make this a great show. This is kind of version 2 now. So please reach out. And with all that being said, enough housekeeping from me. Let's start talking, get into the groove. Florian, first of all, I would love for you to introduce yourself, even though I think many folks who are listening to this know you already. But please say hi and introduce yourself a bit.
Yeah, hi once again. My name is Florian. I joined MediaNet last year in October, and I'm responsible for the project this podcast belongs to, which is GamesNet Berlin Europe, where we connect Berlin and the European games industries. I've worked in the games industry for over 7 years now, starting out with indie developers here in Germany, moving towards events more, and then a 2-year stint in Lithuania, where I organized a gaming event called Game On, where afterwards I moved back here to Berlin now to take over this project. That's a brief introduction, I would say. I think over time more topics might come up, so we will get to know each other more. Yeah, so let's start with our guest, Philo. We invited you, or I thought of inviting you because one of the main topics that always comes up with you is community building. What did you think of our community building that we did with our introduction here?
You got everybody involved for sure.
Cool. Yeah. Tell us what's happening at the moment with you. What's important to you? What's going on?
Okay, so quick intro first. My name is Philomena Schwab. I'm an indie game developer from Zurich, Switzerland. We have a studio there that is called Stray Fawn Studio. It was founded almost 5 years ago now. So I'm already looking forward to the 5th year birthday party in autumn. And we made 2 games. Usually we make simulation games. The first one is called Niche. Second one is Nimbatus. And now we are working on our 3rd one, which is called The Wandering Village, which is a city building simulation game where you build a city on the back of a giant wandering creature. And yeah, aside from that, I started to co-found a co-working space, the first co-working space / incubator for games in Switzerland, actually. The timing was a bit bad. We started it in late 2019 and then, COVID hit and we had to close it down for most of the time. But now slowly people are starting to come in again and we hope we can really get the community going from there.
All right. Yeah, that's a good quick intro. So yeah, back to the initial question. What's at the moment the most important thing for you?
Yeah, I'm trying to keep the money running so that my team has all the time it needs to actually finish our game, because as usual, it takes longer than we thought in the beginning. But so far, it's looking good. I hope we can really achieve something here. We had some pretty good buzz for the game from E3. And now the stakes are high that if we manage to make a good game, this could really be a breakthrough for our studio. But of course, that also puts the pressure higher, right? So that's what's keeping me up.
It's interesting that you would call it a breakthrough, because from my perspective, whatever you touched so far in this industry already seemed like your breakthrough. I thought the moment I noticed Philomena on the international stage, she was there and there to stay. So that was sort of my first impression of you.
That is very kind. But still, like having a 10-people studio in Switzerland, like cost of living is very high in our city, especially also. And yes, so far we were very lucky. Both our games were financially successful, made a profit, but we're still like at a point where we really need to consider timing and what kind of game we should be making. And it would be awesome if we were so successful that we could just do whatever we want when we want it. That is the breakthrough that I'm trying to let my team have, so that we can just jump into prototyping for a whole year or something. That would be amazing. But yeah, it's complaining on a high level.
Yeah, but that kind of freedom, I think it's basically also from going through this myself, but also talking to other indie developers. Obviously, that's the big dream that comes with starting your own studio, to have that kind of freedom to do what you like, what you want, and not be constrained or beholden to some, let's say, a publisher, investor, whatever. Just do what you would like to do.
Yeah, so far we have always basically taken all the money that we have earned with the previous game and put it into the second game and hoped it would work out. That is what we will do again now. And if it absolutely flops, then we have a huge problem, and then we need to find another approach on how to keep making games. So for us, it would be cool if it would also be just possible that we have a flop without going under right away.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That would be an amazing scenario. Do you actually, how much of your time or sleepless nights goes into that kind of thought? Thinking about, the situation is set up to be quite volatile. Although I think with the strategies you're using, you're pretty, from my outside view, I think you're doing everything you can to keep that scenario running. But yeah, so how scary is that thought to? It's
pretty scary, especially because it has so many factors that you can't even control. Of course, if we make a good game or not, that is a factor we can control. But if a very similar game releases at the same time, or if people just don't seem to see in the game what we do, and we didn't manage to convey that, or things that are completely out of our control, such as algorithm changes in Steam. Mm-hmm. So I had some friends where the last algorithm change, the last bigger one, which was, I think, back in 2018, one day they woke up and suddenly they had like 50% less income. And because of that, some of them had to close their studio. And yeah, that is pretty scary. And that is why we started to diversify a bit more. Like we made a Switch release, an Xbox release. We made a mobile game for the first time. And Niche is also coming out. So our first game is now also coming out on PlayStation. So we managed to, get a bit of a broader stance so that we're not depending on just one platform anymore, which makes the situation better for me in sleep-wise.
I have a naive question. What kind of algorithm things are developers subject to on Steam? Or what are like the key algorithm factors that you have to factor in / that you have to cater to?
So the latest one in 2018 was that games from smaller developers were not shown so much anymore in the more like this section. Mm-hmm. So like on the Steam page of a big game, if you scroll down, you get to see similar games. And they changed it so that how much money a game made is a much bigger factor than before, which of course is bad for all the smaller games, which lost a lot of visibility there. They caught up a bit now, I think, with themed sales and with the Steam festivals. That seems to fill the hole a bit, but it still hits some studios pretty hard when that happened.
Okay, understood. So it's the suggestions that, like usual.
It can be everything, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since you already did a introduction of yourself, the projects and the studio, we would also obviously like to hear how you started out professionally in the games industry and what's your story there. When did it start, and how did you find your way into the scene?
Do you want the long story or the
We have some time.
Okay. So this is the really long story. Back when I was in kindergarten, I really liked to draw. And then when I came to school, I really liked to write stories. So for a while, I thought I want to become a comic book artist. And then I had a friend who was doing an apprenticeship as a programmer, and he just lent me some of his books. and thought, hey, look, I had this in school and it's pretty cool. You can program your own ticket machine. And I'm like, what? And it was like a JavaScript programming book. And I just read the thing and I thought it was super interesting. I didn't really have much touching points with computers up until this point. And that got me hooked. But I had the problem that when I was in school, I didn't really try too hard in school. And so I was, in Switzerland, there's like different levels. So there's like the gymnasium and there's like the A, B and the C level. And I was in the B level. And from there, you can't really go to university or anything. So my teachers suggested I should become a hairdresser or a florist. Those were the two creative options that align with this level of school. And nobody told me that you can actually learn something like making games. And I was very lucky that I had a friend who went to school with me, which is now, by the way, our lead artist at our studio. And she told me that game design is actually something you can go and study. And from the time I knew that, when I visited the information event, I absolutely knew that this was what I was going to do. And so I had to really step up my game in school for the first time. And that kind of worked out. And when I got to, so it's a bit complicated how exactly it works in Switzerland, very specific, but I went to a school that would basically then allow me to go study. And there I discovered that I really, really like biology, which also was another topic that I didn't have many touching points before. And that I especially was interested in genetics and evolution. So much that for a while I thought if I should rather go study biology instead of game design. But then I decided to make a deal with myself to go study game design and then just make a game about biology. And that's exactly what some of you who know our games maybe know already which game that will be. So for my bachelor thesis, which was the last project that we did during the studies, where we had like 2 or 3 months time to develop a game, I made a prototype for niche genetic survival game. And I really, really liked the game. And I really wanted to keep working on it, but I was a bit scared because during the bachelor, I had made a mobile game together with 3 friends from my class, like during many, many of our free hours and during the summer vacation and so on. And we had the publisher for that. And unfortunately, it didn't really go so well. So we all only earned like maybe $200 or something in the end. And I didn't want this to happen again with niche. And so I started thinking what I could do in order to make the release more successful. And so I decided to go study again, this time in the master in the game design program, and dedicate a year to learning how to build up a community around this game and also another game that a friend was making. So I started like a Facebook group and just posted my builds there. Got feedback from people. And one thing that was very important to me back then was traveling to events. We have like a local government support, the Pro Helvetia, that sends Swiss game delegations all around the world. That was very important for me because I wasn't really sure who the target group for this game is. I first believed that it would be mostly girls, like maybe from age 8 to 15 or so. And then through traveling and meeting all these people, I actually found out that no, there's also older people and there's also guys who really like this kind of game. So that encouraged me to make it more complex. And it's true.
I will interrupt real quick. Why did you think it was this target group, girls from 8 to 15?
Because it's very cute.
I'm looking at pictures of it right now. It's very cute. Agreed.
It used to be even cuter.
Oh no.
And also like the topic with animals and so on. And whenever like I showed it at an event, it was like the younger girls and the teenage girls whose eyes were always attached to my poster. So I thought, this is certainly going to be part of my target group. And it absolutely is. Like you have a lot of younger girls playing the game, but it just encouraged me that there's also an older group that likes it, that I can put in a lot of complex genetic stuff and don't have to keep it simple.
Okay, so you really actually had your eyes on people, like who was looking at your poster, right? You were really observing. That's interesting. Cool. Okay, very interesting.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of devs who like going to events, and there's a certain group, I think, that you will meet at all the events, and as a frequent event visitor in times when it's possible, it feels like there's some of the studios and people who really have figured out events and how to use them, and don't just like use them to showcase a product, but will do so much research and find out more about their players. And it's a lot more multifaceted what you use an event for, just besides from showing your game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it helped a lot. Events are always also great for just live playtesting, observing all the little things that people are doing in your game. Usually, when me and my team are going to events, then the programmers are constantly making new builds. Like for one event, we have like 5 or sometimes even 10 new builds. Every day there's a new version, fixing all the stuff that was broken, improving the things that people didn't understand. So it's a very, very quick iteration playtesting thing, these events. And yeah, from there, from going to the events, I found a couple hundred people over time. So I collected everybody's email address with a little sign up form. And after I had maybe like 300 people where I knew, okay, they really like the game, I decided to do a crowdfunding campaign that was also still part of the master thesis that I was writing about community building. And part of the motivation was that my teachers were like, okay, you spend a year now gathering these newsletters, but is that actually going to help you get the game funded? And then with the Kickstarter, which raised about $75,000, I think that was proof enough that it was working. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually had that as one of the points I wanted to talk about, the thesis, and then the proof of concept, basically, with a successful crowdfunding campaign. So yeah, let's go into the crowdfunding topic a little bit, because I believe you're an expert in this field. So basically every crowdfunding campaign that you did so far was successful, and it grew beyond its target.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously there's also many crowdfunding campaigns that don't work out.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm wondering is, are you better prepared than others, or what's your special strategy? And maybe how has the crowdfunding landscape for games changed from when you started versus now?
So I'll answer the last question first. So we had a crowdfunding campaign in 2016, one in 2018, and one in 2020. And for me, honestly, there was not a huge difference happening. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see, there are some years that have a bit more traction on Kickstarter, some a bit less, but I think it's pretty stable overall. Also, like the general opinion about crowdfunding campaigns seems to be similar now than it was at least in 2018 or something. So I really like crowdfunding. I would probably do it again once we have the next game. And yeah, I think so. The first thing is always the game, right? So if your game doesn't really stand out too much, or you can't really tell people what it has to offer if you don't really know your own unique selling points and hooks, then your marketing is going to be very hard. So I would say 50% of the game's marketing are done at the beginning of the game, when you actually choose what kind of game that you are making. Because I feel it now with the Wandering Village, with the newest game, it's just so much easier to get those clicks and to get into like fancy showcases and everything, just because the game has a very good short pitch, city building on a giant creature, and some nice visuals, which just makes my life as a marketer so much easier. So that's half of the rent. And then it really comes down to you being creative. And yes, being well prepared is one thing that you can do with crowdfunding campaigns, but that is actually what I really like about crowdfunding campaigns. You have 1 month, right? So if it's your game launch, you don't have a month time to fix it, because it really comes down to the first week or even the first 3 days where you will really, so if you make Steam games like me, you really have to prove the algorithm in a short amount of time that you are worth being shown to more people. Of course, you can also be among us and be there for a year, and then suddenly a huge streamer picks it up and you have a story like that. But usually your launch is your best bet in order to have a strong long tail and good sales. So crowdfunding gives you a month of time to experiment. And if your crowdfunding campaign fails, you can just relaunch. If your launch fails, you usually don't just relaunch. So I think it's great, especially for people who want to release their first game, just to try out and see if their marketing works. Because if it doesn't work for their Kickstarter, chances are also that it will be hard to market the game right at launch. Mm-hmm. So you can prepare, you can make like a list of people that should give you shout outs, like other Kickstarter creators that already have a following on the similar game, crowdfunded. If you have a demo, you can send it out to influencers. So it was funny because we had all 3 cases. The first game, Niche, had a very well prepared crowdfunding campaign, and we had a demo that we could send out. And that worked. For Nimbatus, the second game, we only had 1 month to prepare the Kickstarter campaign because we delayed the Niche release twice and had already announced the Nimbatus Kickstarter. So there was barely any preparation.
Oh, wow.
But we had a playable demo. And so instead of advertising the Kickstarter, because we didn't really have a following of people who wanted to support us yet, we just spent the month advertising the demo, like on Reddit and Imgur. I wrote a whole article about every single one of our Kickstarter campaigns. Maybe we can put the link in the description later.
For sure.
And yeah, then the marketing for the demo worked out pretty decently. And then we just advertised the Kickstarter to everybody who downloaded the demo, because to download the demo, you had to sign up for our newsletter. And that worked also. And for the Wandering Village, we didn't have a demo, which was very new to me and made me very nervous, because usually our main source of traffic is always like YouTubers and Twitch streamers. So this time we had to find other ways, and this time we also had a little bit of budget, so we worked with an ad company, and that worked out pretty well. So yeah, all of them kind of found their way, but they were all very, very different campaigns. And I think every campaign is quite different from each other. And you really need to look at other campaigns. There's a lot of articles flowing around about how these people did it, learn what they did, try to be creative with your own approach.
Nice.
I have a quick question about marketing and the channels you mentioned. You mentioned Reddit. You also mentioned Imgur or ImageUR or however we call it. Can you talk a little bit about? I'm getting this guerrilla feel from you. I think I saw the Wandering Village for the first time on Reddit. I think you had like a huge thread, right, where we're making this type of game. Can you talk a little bit about the ways you communicate with people, with the potential audience, on which platforms and through which means, so to speak, like to get this organic flow going?
Yeah, so especially in the beginning, right, when we didn't have a budget at all, it was all zero budget marketing techniques. Now we do, but still most of our strategy is zero budget. So for example, one thing that we're currently doing for the Wandering Village is reposting a dev diary on Imager. So like every month or so, I just have a new post there with new images and everything, talking about the game, because I don't really understand why people are having dev blogs on their websites, because then people have to come to your website to read this, and usually they are already in your community. So it's cool that you have a place to update your community, but why not just take this effort and turn it into a way where also new people can learn about the game. So for example, on Immature or other people are doing it on Twitter. It might be not the perfect format because you have to be so short, or you can have a subreddit where you post these things. So I basically just try to have every effort that I do be able to also go viral. So I also do like smaller updates in our own Discord, but I also always link them like to the Immature one, or I cross-post the Immature dev diary on Reddit. And so yeah, you can save a lot of time doing a Reddit post. Just takes 5 minutes if you just link it to your Immature dev diary. And then if it goes viral, you will spend the whole day answering questions, but then it will be very much worth it.
And as far as I can see, you always link to your Discord, and I'm also in your Discord since we last met. And your Discord, maybe another round on that, how you manage that, because I think your Discord is one of the like most actively engaged Discords from the owners I've seen. I'm in a bunch of streamer Discords, and of course there are all the kids watching them and they're talking to each other, and that's cool. But you are really like saying hi to everybody, and well, for you to tell, how does that look like for you? What does Discord do for you as well? Like,
you mean the Wandering Village Discord, right?
Specifically, yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So yeah, Discord just showed up and everybody is using it. So people have a user account there. I have a big mixed feelings about investing so much time into building up the Discord, because we also have our own forums. So I'd much rather have people sign up for the forums. So the Discord is kind of like an entry level into the community, I would say. But what we did with Niche and Nimbatus, with the previous 2 games, when people wanted to vote and make suggestions that are actually considered to be implemented in the game, they had to post them in the forums. So the most dedicated people from the Discord then wandered over to the forums, and they're still sticking around there to some extent, and we can easily reach them again if we want to. And yeah, so we're putting some energy into Discord because it's just the entry level is so much lower, right? You only have to click a button and you're already in the Discord. For the forums, you really need to make an account and everything. And you probably only want to do that if you really know that you like the game. And so far with like posts on Reddit or on Immature, or on 9gag, which we also sometimes do. Usually they don't like advertising so much, right? So if you have a call to action that people can join the Discord, it is usually like they prefer that. You don't get so many people complaining about you being an ad if you don't link to your Steam page directly. And then we can still ping everyone in the Discord and tell them that they could go wishlist the game when the time has come.
I see. I think it's very interesting. So you do have a whole funnel there, right? And
yes.
Can you maybe, last question in this regard, can you maybe describe how you would sum up your funnel, how that works, and where you maybe make the most like community driven sales or signups or whatnot?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the top level is awareness, right? So whenever there is a new social channel, I do a lot of chats with other developers. So like at least once or twice a week, when I see somebody doing something really well, I just ask them if we can do a quick 30 minutes talk or a short call. And then when I see a topic coming up again and again. So for example, currently it's TikTok, right? You see a lot of people that are having a lot of success with TikTok. And so now I assigned one of my colleagues to try and build up our TikTok and see if we can get something going there. So just whenever we hear or we find out that there is a way to get some organic traffic in, then we start doing it. And that's basically the top of the funnel. Then we try to bring those people into the Discord. And from there, we would like them to either join our forums or our newsletter, because in the long run, I think the newsletter is quite effective because just your email address is what you change less frequently, right? So I don't know if Discord will be there in 2 years. And if possible, I want as many of those people as possible in our forums or on our newsletter before Discord disappears or is replaced by something new, maybe.
Always the thing with platforms, right? You want your own. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's the end of the funnel, your forums and your newsletter. Yeah. And that's where the people are closest attached to you.
I would say, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's very interesting, practical advice. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Which also serves as a perfect segue to another question I had. Because this was also your description had so many layers and so many different approaches. And that's also something that I noticed with your career background. When we did our research, we spoke that you studied to become an artist, but as you told us before, you were interested in programming, and then there's biology. And on your projects, you had to take many roles, such as a project manager as well. Then you co-founded the studio. And then to many, this might sound like it's all over the place, but to me, it feels really familiar, because basically with every new job or every new project, I had to learn new skills or completely changed my role or partly changed my role since being in this industry. So how would you define your role today? You call yourself a marketer, and how do you feel as an expert right now, or more of a jack of all trades and you can do anything and everything?
Yeah, I keep wondering about the same thing. So for the Wandering Village, I did like 1 or 2 of the prototypes in terms of programming. And for the last game, I helped a little bit in the art section. So I really like to be always there where my team needs the support most. And yeah, where there's an open role, I usually take it. And I keep replacing myself basically in our company with, when I find somebody who is better than me at something, and we have the budget, then I will hire this person, and then basically I don't have to do this job anymore, and then I move to another job, and that kind of just moves you around. And I think it's very useful to be able to do things in so many different sectors. So for me, doing the marketing, I can do some of the artwork, or I can try and figure out what kind of bot I want to have for our YouTuber sheet. Maybe I can't program it myself, but I have like an idea of how it could work, at least. And yeah, with the management, that's certainly helpful everywhere, I think, if you can manage your own time, if you can manage your own people's time. I recently moved in very much into BizDev, like writing a lot of mails, meeting a lot of people, trying to get all the deals, and a little bit more away from marketing, since we now have somebody in the team who supports me. So yeah, I don't know where I will be in 3 or 4 months. Ask me again. So now my team told me we really have to stop getting all these opportunities because it's an amazing place to be with the game currently, but we managed to get into a lot of showcases, and I distracted everybody with them having to make trailers and exclusive material from it, and so we couldn't really work on the game. Yeah. So they told me I should stop doing all the marketing and better join the game design team again to help make the game better. So that's probably what I will be doing in autumn.
That's good that you also have the skills to back up what's needed. Because I remember that those kind of talks very distinctly from being in one role of the company that needs something from the other role, to push your own needs forward. And if you're in a big company, then each role has one or multiple people. You can just request something, and then there's a timeline and a plan, and you will get that stuff. But if you're an indie development company, people fill multiple roles, and sometimes just what one person or one role needs will not work out for what the other role needs at the moment or has as highest priority. So if you are able to do at least part of the job or understand what the other role has to fulfill for yourself to be able to get to your next milestone, then your request might also be a lot more reasonable and seem reasonable to them. And there's less friction, I would say.
Absolutely. I'm very lucky that not just me, but pretty much everybody on my team has like multiple roles that they can fulfill. So they understand each other quite easily.
Mm-hmm. Nice. That's a very good place to be in as a company.
It's also fun because you don't have to explain everything to everyone all the time.
Yeah.
So how do these conversations go? I mean, if you say that you are kind of all over the place, and then you're even doing good things that turn out to be maybe a strain in the end, like you described. You said it's important to manage your time, to manage your people's times. How do you guys manage these types of conversations? What are your systems in your company to decide who does what if everybody can do many things?
I mean, we usually take like one person that is the main responsible person for this. So we have a lead artist, we have a lead programmer, we have a lead game designer, and so on. And everybody else is just there if they want feedback, essentially. And so we recently started working with Scrum. We didn't do it for a long time, but I think we kind of did it anyways. It's just a bit more formalized now. So we have always been doing a daily stand-up, both in the office and now in home office also, where in the morning just everybody says what they did yesterday, what they're doing today, and where we agree if there should be any meetings today and who should be there. And sometimes people also just listen with one ear what everybody is talking about. And yeah, then the lead role has usually the lead in the meeting, and we figure out what we need to figure out, and everybody goes back to working on their things. And then every 3 weeks we play the game, we give feedback about different areas of the game, and we make new tasks that we want to finish until the next playtesting session in 3 weeks.
Okay. That's straightforward, huh?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so the indie team still needs some rules.
I mean, for a long time we didn't really do this, and but the thing is, we're also not very good. So one thing that our studio is really not very good at is hitting deadlines. Usually we just don't communicate them outside too early, but we are really, really always underestimating by half a year or sometimes even a year when we will be actually finished with like, okay, early access releases here, full releases here. That is also one reason why we don't want to work with a publisher. Because as long as we have the money, we just extend the development time. So we always just reinvest all of the money in the next game anyways, so far, as I told you. And then we're just like, okay, we need an extra 3 months. Let's put the money in there. Can we maybe find another deal that will keep us floating for an extra few months? So far, we luckily always did. And yeah, if we had a publisher that had an agenda, there are of course some publishers who are quite flexible in this regard, but I see that there would be some tension happening there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and if you're
good art doesn't live on a deadline, you know. That's that.
Well,
how should that even happen?
Yeah,
I think that's the right way to go, as long as you can, which. I think that sounds to me like one of the most important things you guys are doing, that you are truly funding yourself and thereby you're the masters of your own time.
I think so too. Also, we really try not to crunch. So outside of maybe release month or sometimes even just release week, we work like 7 or 8 hours a day and not more usually.
Nice. Actually, obviously this freedom always comes at a price. So I had one thing written down, and I don't want to go into the whole topic about publishers and no publishers, because I think that's a whole conversation of its own.
Yeah.
But what I was interested in is, you mentioned you put in your own money into the game. That means you know your runway, and it's all your own money and all your own risk. But still you made some ethical decisions, which is when you released your first mobile game or your first mobile game with a company, you chose to go for premium monetization. And you said that was for ethical reasons. So I'd like to talk a little bit about this. First of all, what made you go to mobile? In part, you said a little bit about that before, but can you expand on your stance about monetization on mobile and how you see the current market as an indie? Because we spoke about Steam, and then obviously mobile is a whole different beast.
Yeah. So yeah, for our first game, Niche, we had a lot of people who were always telling us, hey, you should really make a game like this on mobile. And so at some point, I think it was like 2.5 years ago, we hired 2 interns to make a prototype during their summer vacation. And then we got a little bit of government funds for that. And then we thought, cool, we're just going to make a tiny game, and then we're going to release it, more like an experiment as a premium game, because we wanted to see if that is actually still possible. And then, of course, you already know what happened. It took us a lot longer than we thought to finish the game. Like, we wanted to finish it in half a year, and then it took us like 2 years. But then again, it was also because the 2 interns went back to their master studies, and then they came again, and then they had to study again. So that stretched everything out a bit. But now we finally managed to release it. Over a year later than we thought. And so far it's going pretty decent. It's not yet close to breaking even, but the long tail so far looks pretty stable. So I'm curious to see if it will manage to bring the money back in. Maybe over the course of a year. If not, we also have some plans, what other things we could do with it. So yes, we have some moral constraints, like we really prefer to design games as pay once games, because then you don't even have like the incentive to make super addicting mechanics. I mean, of course you want to have addicting mechanics in some way because you really want people to like your game. But you know what I mean. Our goal when designing the game is not to get money out of your pockets. We really don't want to design games that way, because we don't think games should be this way. So we don't want to contribute to that. But I mean, a model where you have like a freemium model where the game is free, but then you can buy like additional genes or additional island packs, and it is limited how much money you can actually spend. Yeah. Then that's fine. Or maybe even ads, as long as they're like child friendly, are also an option. We're still investigating it. So we're going to see how the long tail is. And if it's not well, we will investigate what else we can do with the game. Maybe we will also just make it completely free and use it as a place to get people to know more about the brand and maybe ultimately purchase the PC game. And we're also currently making a plushie for the game and maybe a book. I'm currently in a concept phase for that. So it could also just be good for the franchise that more people find it, right? Or maybe we will make a PC port, because that wouldn't be so much more work. So there's still a lot of things we can explore there.
I really like that you already call it a franchise, which is like, I love that thought, because I mean, you're building your own universe, and although you're a small studio, we're basically talking about terms like as if you were Marvel doing your whole like curated release schedule. But I actually also remember this. So I see a lot of similarities to back when I used to work in Black Pants, because the studio I started my career in. because we also thought really hard about how could each game at some point interact with the other, even if they initially started out as something completely different. How could that turn into something that could be linked? Is there any way to, think about the long tail? If you sell game 3, will you bring people back to game 1? And is it also coherent in terms of story? And I mean, our stories were really crazy, but I really like that model of thinking of how to connect everything and make the whole of it better.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing also, like as soon as you are making your second game or your third game, how you can really leverage these players and this community from the previous game. So just one very simple example with the Wandering Village. So on the Steam page for Niche and on the Steam page for Nimbatus, there's like a widget very high up on the Steam page that says, hey, this is our new game. You can go wishlist it here. Mm-hmm. And that is maybe contributing almost a third or so of our wish lists. Yeah. And so whenever we have like a sale with the other two games, they will also convert into wish lists for the new game. And I don't see many developers doing this, and I don't know why not.
Everybody do it.
Yeah.
Everybody do it.
It's like, I wanted to quickly comment on the Marvel thing you said, Florian, as well, because that seems really important. As a consumer, I always really liked Easter eggs. I remember when, for example, I think in GTA San Andreas, the guy from GTA 3 shows up in a very quick moment, and it's like made into a joke that he doesn't talk because he doesn't in GTA 3. And it's, as a kid, especially back then, it's one of the most epic moments. It's like, no way. They put this guy in there. That's hilarious. I don't know what it is about crossovers, but I think people love crossovers. And I don't know, do you have something like this planned? Like, are there niche creatures in the Wandering Village?
We always plan, but somehow it always gets dropped in all the other stuff that we still have to do. Yeah, why? I agree.
I really want to say it creates a really special feeling, like, especially if what we're talking about in this crossover universe, imperial type of thinking, which I think is really important. I had the same thing when you said franchise just now, which Florian picked up on. I had the same feeling even before he said, I was like, there's something big in that word that you're using that. Seems like it's the right way of thinking. And it's like, I don't know what it is. Maybe somebody can explain it, but like, I think crossover creates a very special and unique feeling. And
I agree.
Yeah. What is that? Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe that you just feel that things are made from the same creator. So especially if it's like two pretty different games, and then you realize, hey, I know this character. Oh, it's from the same developer. So we just hear that a lot with The Wandering Village, that people find it somewhere and then they realize it's the same developer as one of our previous games that they played.
I had this too a bit. Like, I saw The Wandering Village and I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then when we met, I was like, oh, that's you. That's and you know what I think it's like, this crossover? It's a bit like an inside joke. It's like, I've seen this before, or I know about this, or when, I don't know, a comedian alludes to there's this classic thing out. Do you know that when you go buy strawberries, blah, 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 it's like a classic comedian joke opening line. And it's all about creating an inside joke, because if you're somebody who goes to buy strawberries, you're like, oh yeah, I totally know that. Whatever that is, I don't know the rest of the joke.
Maybe it just makes you really feel like you're part of this group, right?
Yeah. Or I think I've heard recently, I haven't really watched many Marvel things recently, but there was this, I think one of the movies that came out recently referenced another Marvel movie as a movie, which is like this kind of fourth wall breaking thing. And it's like, you think like, oh, I've seen that movie, and now they are seeing that movie too. And so, we have something in common, or that's funny, or, fourth wall breaking in general is also really funny. Characters that talk to you through the screen. I think this is all the same category. It's like, oh, something, it's this unusual, jokey, what's going on type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's such a strong, I really, put some niche guys into the. I'm telling you right here.
Putting it on my to-do list.
Yeah, please, Philomena.
Yeah, there you have your community feedback on the long list of things to add. We just added one more, and I really love this feeling from different sides as well, because as a fan or as a player, you will pick up on that, and maybe it only references your own game, but I think in games, and there has been a long tradition of doing this with Easter eggs, and my favorite games do this stuff that I always pushed us to do as well. And I was one of the people who did that, and others really hated that stuff because they thought it was cheesy and tacky. It's sort of like these pop culture references through achievement names or hints at other games. I really, really love that kind of stuff because you can actually not only use it to have that kind of familiar feeling with your player base, that they laugh or they remember something from reading the name of that achievement, but also it really helps in terms of what you do for marketing. Many cool studios do that. They build in some small gimmick or Easter egg or achievement that calls out some influencer or has some reference that is in the current pop culture. And that brings them a lot of attention because the community will go to that person and say, dude, or did you know that you're in this game? They referenced you here. Maybe try that or play that. So I really love this kind of, from a personal perspective as a player, but also in terms of thinking about marketing and connecting.
Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
Definitely smart.
Yeah, let's switch topics a little bit, because what I wanted to talk about next is the games industry landscape in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. After university, you chose to start your own studio. And yes. Obviously, we know Switzerland is not that big of a country in terms of size and also population. So there also aren't too many games companies there. People will probably know Giant Games from there. Obviously, they are quite big, but then I personally know. Yeah, I'm sorry. Pun not intended. There are a few indie studios I know from there, and I always found that they make a lot of very good looking games in Switzerland and very cool indie games there. But there's no huge studio that employs like hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. So how did people fare who graduated from your class? And are they still working in the industry now? And how would you describe the landscape and the chances to work in the industry?
It's funny that we talk about this now because just this morning we sent a letter to the Federal Council of Switzerland that a lot of the studios signed that are in Switzerland, which is basically about improving the financial funding for games because there's really not a lot happening. Uh-huh. And there's a lot of catching up to do. So hopefully this gets us somewhere. When I graduated from the Bachelor, which was back in 2014, it was pretty hard to find a job. So as you said, there is a few game companies, but even Giants only has about 25 employees in Switzerland, maybe 30 now, but so not a lot. There's now also Urban Games, which is probably the second biggest that you could know, which made Transport Fever and Train Fever. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I looked around a bit for a job. There were some open, but not that many. And yeah, quite a few people from my class, unfortunately, couldn't really find a good job in game development as they wanted it to have. And many moved into neighboring fields like programming, 3D visualization, and so on. And at that point, I thought I really want to try and contribute also so that future students who graduate actually can find a job. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to start my own studio. And it's also the main reason why we're currently, at least, only trying to hire in Switzerland, so that when there is the rare opportunity of us having offering a new job, then I want to try and do it here, even though it's quite expensive. But overall, I would say the situation has improved quite a bit. So we recently did a study with the Swiss Game Developers Association, and that showed that 2018 compared to 2008 had about 500% more people working in games. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely growth is happening. It's just slow. It just seems like everything in Switzerland is a bit slower compared to the rest of the world.
And, so one thing that you're actually doing, and that's also something was very interesting to me and that I wanted to talk to you about, is this Games Hub that basically also comes from what I would say the same direction as all the stuff we've been talking about. So I would see this maybe as a culmination of all these things, like being in the Developers Association, hiring from the universities there, pushing for change in terms of funding. So you start out wanting to make games, and then there's this whole long tail, as we say, but not in terms of like earnings, but in terms of what comes with it. Mm-hmm. Because it's not only making your games and releasing them, which the first step is always that developers get told at all those conferences. So you don't only make your game, you have to think about marketing, yada yada. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it's like even building your own ecosystem around yourself while you're doing that. So you're not only making a game, you're building a studio, you're building a games hub around it. Mm-hmm. You're helping the industry grow and talking to the government. So this whole thing is like moving a mountain to make a game. And that's, I mean, it's impressive, but it also seems a little bit crazy. Yeah. But I mean, there are those kinds of people who do that also in other countries or in other regions as well. Mm. But you need these kinds of people to move things forward. So that's what I really love about this approach. Mm-hmm. So tell us more about this hub. Who can come there? Is it only for games? Is the state involved somehow? Is it only funded by you? Mm-hmm. Who's behind it, and so on? So
it's our studio. It's another Swiss studio called Ateo. They make VR games, and it's a solo developer called David Stark, mm-hmm. who made a game by himself, which was financially successful. It's called Airships. And then we decided to move into the same office space and just rented an extra room. That was basically the start, that we rented out very, very cheaply to other people working in games. Yes, it has to be games. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that filled up pretty quickly before COVID happened. The government has been visiting, but so far, isn't involved in getting us any funds. But yeah, we're writing them letters. So at some point, they will notice. And yeah, so the main idea behind the hub is essentially that we have, as you said, a lot of people who make very beautiful games, who make also, they can program well. They're good in game design, art, and programming, essentially. And because we have no bigger studios, those people are usually juniors when they start out, right? And mm-hmm. they haven't really been in a studio, so they haven't seen like how game producing works, like how to schedule things. They don't really know about business development. They don't know about marketing. And so every studio needs to learn this stuff from scratch again. And we wanted to provide a place where there is a good mix between more experienced studios. So for example, the guys from Unrailed, if you know them, mm-hmm. moved in recently, and really new developers. And then they just have lunch together and they chat, and existing studios get maybe some cool new ideas, and the new studios get a lot of advice, essentially. We also have a mentorship program where you can apply with your game, and then you just get the space for free and you get the mentoring for free, essentially. And then we hope that over time this will pay. So if the game is super successful from the mentored games, then the hub gets like a 5% share So if we ever have a Minecraft in there, the Swiss game scene will be saved.
And are you also thinking about basically using your knowledge from your own releases and getting all those companies together to sort of function as a publisher? Because I've seen studios that were or have been successful do that kind of as a next step. And it's always about bringing along people to help with your expertise in terms of what you do. And we also did that for another game. And a lot of studios now do that. Obviously, those who are really successful help out others. Is that something you are interested in doing?
Yeah, we actually had one game that we co-published. They could just work in our office space. We helped a bit with the marketing and got like a 10% share. So that was a first step in that direction. And I was actually planning to maybe start publishing games this year. So for some months this year, I was actively scouting city building games because for me, it makes sense that if we make a city building game, then if we publish city building games, it saves me a lot of work. Right. And I'm staying in the same mindset. It's similar influencers. It's similar events that are relevant. So if we start really publishing, then it would usually be probably a game in the same genre as we're developing. But then again, we had a lot of attention for our own game and the pressure is mounting and mounting. And so it was like, no, let's just everybody focus on this game, make it good. We can do the publishing stuff later. If we actually make some decent money, we can even offer the developers some better deals with that next year, maybe.
All right.
Stop with all the opportunities, Philomena.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. That's what it feels like. Stop it.
Yeah, your team might come back and tell you to stop bringing the opportunities again.
Yeah.
So let's sort of finish up this first interrogation round from my side with a few quickfire questions. Since we at Games at Berlin Europe obviously are always connected to events or organize our own events, something that always is interesting to me is what's your favorite event in the game space to do business?
Very hard. So, I mean, going to Reboot is very nice just because the location is so nice and there is no matchmaking system. So you just go to talks and meet people. And so it's probably a great place to make friends. And maybe you're lucky and it's a friend that you can also do business with. So I really enjoyed going to Reboot. In terms of business, probably GDC is where we struck most of our deals and found most of our contacts, like just with your booth and then have some meetings. But there are really lots of great events, so it's really hard for me to say.
So you basically answered 2 in 1 because my follow-up question would have been, what's your favorite event to hang out? So I assume that's Reboot then?
Yes.
All right. And the last question is about Berlin, since that's where we are based. What's your favorite memory connected to Berlin?
So there's, of course, Amaze, right? And I really, really like Amaze also. I also really liked the combination of Covadis and Amaze. So I came and I did all the business at Covadis and learned many things. And then I went to Amaze and made lots of friends. And sometimes it was even like the same people that were at Covadis. And then you got to know them over a beer and you danced together. So I think having a cucumber ice cream at Amaze was pretty cool.
Amaze. Actually happening right now.
Yeah.
Hybrid. You can sign up to a workshop around TikTok and guerrilla marketing, which also was a topic here, which is supported by GamesNet Berlin Europe.
I want to go.
Happening this Saturday at Amaze. Well, obviously, when you will hear it, this will not be this Saturday. And that was completely, like, for listeners, it doesn't really matter. I thought I was clever. But here, first time podcast noob. yeah, listen to this and then travel back in time and sign up.
Maybe you have to send me the link.
Yeah, I mean, that was for the listeners, but for you, I will send you the link and you can check in there.
Whoop.
Privileges of living in another time dimension. Is it my turn?
It is officially your turn.
Fantastic. Yeah, so this is new, right? Normally I've been doing these whole interviews. It was nice to lean back a bit and just interject with some naive questions. And I feel like we already have quite a journey behind us in this podcast. I don't have too many questions left. I always like to talk about life. And, Florian already said it a bit that you have quite some power and some presence. And I'm always curious where people come from who are like you, what are you like? Maybe, a leader and with lots of energy and making things happen and not leaving things undone. Maybe too many things, as we heard. I'm very curious how you grew up and what or who influenced you and how you came to be who you are.
Yeah. Who am I?
That is a good question.
I grew up in Zurich. No, actually I didn't. I grew up near Canton Schwyz, but only like for the first 4 years next to a lake with my mom, and there were lots of sheep around us for some reason. And then we had to move further into the city because I had to go to kindergarten. And since then, I'm living in the same house. So for 28 years, I just recently moved one floor up in the same house.
Wow.
That's like the biggest change in living situation for me in the past 20 years. So.
Wow.
And my mom still lives one floor downstairs, so we hang out a lot. I was super lucky that the upstairs floor got empty. And yeah, I think the reason that we have such a strong connection is because she mostly raised me alone. I have contact with my dad. I met him like every Wednesday afternoon. Also when I was a kid, he's an artist. So he made like cool lamps and also some cool paintings. So that probably also helped to get me on the artist path potentially. But the things that we do are quite different. It's like he makes music now mostly, and he always gives me an album, and then I listen to it a bit, and I give him a game and he plays it a bit, but kind of our universes are maybe a bit further apart there. And
crossover soon.
Yeah, he actually offered to be our sound designer at some point. So let's see if that's going to work out. And yeah, my mom always had a lot of energy raising me. And I think many things in my moral understanding come from her. So that was probably my biggest influence growing up. And then like, especially when I was a teenager, my now lead artist friend also had a lot of, inspired me a lot because she was so much better at drawing than me. So I had always been one of the people who could draw best in my age, I would claim. And then she came along and then I was, what? When did she learn how to be so good? And I was never like, I was not really an achiever or anything. I was also never really good at school. And she really motivated me to push myself and to learn to live at the edge of my comfort zone.
How did she do that?
Yeah, just by being so much better than me, I think. And me wanting to catch up with her. And then I kind of started feeling that it's fun to not always be in your comfort zone. And that's where I'm living ever since, at the edge of my comfort zone.
Yeah, you're saying it's the edge, right? So you're not, you're not saying that you're living far out of it. How do you manage that then, like comfort and challenge?
Well, I would say I'm probably too often outside of the comfort zone, which can result in me becoming quite nervous, and then I really have to take a vacation and a step back and find myself a little bit again and allow myself to not jump out of the window today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Not today.
Not today. But yeah, I wouldn't really say I have mastered that too well yet. But I'm hoping it will become a bit more quiet sometime. It's kind of hard because I'm kind of wishing, and now it's getting really psychological.
Let's go. That's what I'm here for.
I'm kind of hoping that I will start to quiet down soon and be more in my comfort zone, but at the same time, I don't want to. It's kind of, I never really know when I should stop pushing, or if I should stop pushing, or what would be better for me, or what would I regret more, having pushed too much or having pushed too little, and that stuff.
Do you know how to listen to signs from your body?
Yes. So usually whenever I don't want to work, that's a clear sign that I should not work.
Yeah.
And then if I have any chance of then not working, I drop everything and just walk out of the room.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems to be the best indicator for the question you asked, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. It's like, I usually notice when I should stop pushing. So just today, like an hour before we went into this recording, I stepped out the shower and like raised the towel over my head or whatever, and my shoulder went like yoink, and some sharp lightning like pain went into it, and I'm like, damn it, what's going on? And I know what's going on. I've maybe been out and about a little bit too much, maybe a drink here or there too many, and that well, I don't want to say the body takes revenge or something, but if you treated the body and the mind, the whole system, of course, if you treat it too recklessly, then it's usually like, did I have to be so pointed with you now? When will you learn? And then there's a greater degree of pain, and but if you know how to do that, then I think it's just about finding what works, right? Like,
yeah, I think so far disasters have been evaded.
Yeah, good. Don't want to push it to disaster. Nice. Okay, but so why do you hope to quiet down? I mean, it seems like you have a lot of energy. You're serving a lot of people. You're living your best life type of thing.
Yeah, but I just feel that I usually have the tendency that when I reach a goal, I will just set a new goal. And for a while, I believed that, hey, if I manage to establish my own studio and actually work on my games the whole day, that's when I will be a lot happier. That's just what I thought before I reached the goal. And then I realized, it's cool, but I'm not just happier by default. And so I stopped believing that if I reach another higher goal, it will make me just a happier person. And so I'm thinking if I should just take more time and do some other things, go some other places, and stop pushing for the goals, because just reaching goals doesn't make yourself happier, right?
I think that's,
in my opinion.
No, I think that's just correct. I think that's not even a matter of opinion. Because, well, I mean, there are two things in there, right? There's like happiness, which is interesting. A lot of people talk about it. I'm curious whether that was, it seems like it was something that you were aiming to attain, happiness, or that it's an important like measurement of how you're doing in life.
So when I started the studio, and it's still my goal, essentially I wrote down one sentence, which is, I want to create a place where I enjoy my days, and I want to help others do the same. So that is kind of the standard that I'm holding my efforts to, and that is important to me. And then when I feel so in the past months, I have done a lot of stuff that I didn't really like, or like my teammates seem to be pretty unhappy with what they're doing, then it's all pointless for me. Then I could just work somewhere, go home at 6 and don't think about the work and enjoy it just the rest of the time. So yeah, if I don't manage to keep myself happy and keep my coworkers happy, then this doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, but is enjoying your day and being happy, is that the same thing?
I don't know. Maybe. I guess for me.
Simon really pushes into the deep psychological topics. Like,
yeah, I mean, you could see it, of course. You could see it, of course, as like it makes me happy to have a bigger overall achievement, right? But for me, it seems that the small things that happen every day have a bigger influence of how I'm feeling I mean, if something really big happens, if you get like an award or your game is selling amazingly well in a way, that's always just short term usually for me. And I really need to enjoy every day, and every day something nice needs to happen, and I write it down in my gratitude diary, and then I feel good. If I'm crunching all the time and everything sucks, but we get a lot of awards and I'm rich, then I don't think that would satisfy me.
Well, that is well said. So gratitude, and you said it too. So the other thing, I had two things, if you remember from that, like 3 sentences before, or what you said.
Mm-hmm.
One was happiness and the other one was like goals. And it seems like it's well, what I've adapted for me as a truth is like it's systems over goals. Goals are like you run after them, you achieve them, and then literally all you can do is set the next goal. Because, well, the goal is reached, and what are you going to do now? If you're going to do anything, new goal. And you just described it by the measure of the day, which I think is very nice. And there you can have like systems. So things that happen every day or every other day or maybe once a week. And, you know, maybe the things that happen every day don't necessarily need to be nice or amazing, but they need to be in a certain integrity with what is going on, you know. Something can go bad, right? And it can still be good, because in a general sense, well, good and bad are like difficult terms, but something can seem unfortunate or don't go in the way of your expectations, but you can still feel gratitude for it. You can still say, oh, this was a good lesson, you know, and then the day contained something of value and of maybe retrospective enjoyment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that seems nice. And how did you come up with the idea of having, let's say, a gratitude journal or something like that?
It was actually my psychotherapist who advised me to start it. I see her like once a month. I think it's just really nice talking to somebody who is not opinionated, or where you just really don't have to care what they think about you.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about your worries to a friend, or at least I do, then it's always like, I kind of worry, what does she think about me now? A little bit, like not a lot. I trust my friends that they like me, but just removing all of that and just talking to somebody that I know has a lot of insight into the human psychology, in my opinion, is something very helpful to do for every human. Yeah. So do it. And like, she advised me to start the gratitude diary, which I turned it kind of into a picture diary, which got me drawing again, because I haven't been drawing at all lately. And then in the evening, I just sit down, draw a picture of a nice thing that happened today. And yeah, when I take it out again on the weekend and like browse through it, it always makes me happy. And it's just also, it's kind of a diary also, but also, helps me to be full of gratitude for things. And she also gives me like stuff where I have to think about how I want to spend my time and how I'm spending it, and so on, which also helps.
So, what do you think about spending time? What are your lines of thought on that? You mentioned it actually in it flared up for me when you said it when you talked about leading your team. You said like managing my time, managing others' time, kind of. Now you said it again. What do you think about that?
What do I think about that? Yeah, it's just...
Or how do you think about it?
How do I think about it?
About time and how to spend it. I think it's one of the most important questions, you know?
Yeah.
It's the eternal currency, you know? It's the rarest one we have, the time. The time.
So I just really personally like it when things are efficient, because it makes me feel good when I feel that I have finished some stuff in only the amount of time that was really needed for it. And I think it also makes my employees happy, that they feel, or my coworkers happy, because they feel they're progressing nicely. So it's just good to have a clear overview of who is doing what, when, and also when we shouldn't be doing stuff. But to be honest, I'm not sure when I really thought about this for the last time. Maybe I need to put some thought into this. What would you say about time?
What would I say about it? I mean, it's there are countless things, of course. What comes to mind right now is something like in a day. We're talking about the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
When is it time for what? So, when are good times to eat? When are good times to walk outside? When are good times to work or to wake up and to go to bed? These markers of the day, they are. There's a clear societal understanding of when what roughly happens. Wake up at 7, breakfast at 8. No, whatever. You get the idea. But then, as an artist, or a more, let's say, individual soul, you have a lot more freedom, and I think it's worthy to take it as far as you can and figure it out what works for you. So there are people who like to be up all night and work because that's when they're creative. I think that's maybe a reasonable way of being, if you can, of course, negotiate that with your surroundings. But yeah, so that's something that comes to my mind about time. Like for you personally, or for your organization or your family, what is good when?
Yeah, it can be hard. The more people you are, the less individualistic it becomes, right? Because you have to kind of fit into one size fits it all planning schedule. We try to do the meetings at 10 in the morning and then do whatever meetings we agree on doing during the day. But other than that, if somebody is gone for a few hours or is gone in the afternoon or whatever, if they don't have any obligations with other people then, and we don't have any looming deadlines on the horizon on the next week or something, then they're usually just free to do what they want. But we never really had somebody who can really only work best at night. So that will be a new challenge if somebody like that joins the company.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something I want to ask you too, because you do seem to be following quite a few, let's say, idealistic propositions. I think you, you seem to be very community and togetherness and so on oriented, like we talked about. I believe you said that you have equal pay throughout your company.
Yeah.
As in everybody gets paid the same amount. Very straightforward communication. And I'm wondering, what would your ways be? For example, you mentioned that example. Let's say you get a night owl. How would you integrate them? Or in a more general sense, you mentioned morals too. What things are most important for you when I present you with what you seem to be doing? There seems to be a thread there. So I'm wondering about that.
So I think we would really need to that you're a night owl, I would probably want to know, like when we're discussing to hire you, because for us, it's really important that people can like feel comfortable and work in the way that they want. So if we feel that we couldn't provide that for you, then I'm not sure what we would be doing. Probably we would find some kind of solution, but if we couldn't, maybe it would be better to just not work together, because then
Fair enough, right?
Have our values continuing in this case. But I'm honestly not sure. We would try to make it work, I think. My morals. As I said, I think I just want to be enjoying what I do. I want my coworkers to enjoy what they do, and I want our players to enjoy our games. If I can help other people that have similar goals to this, then I will. So I usually spend like 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week at least, just taking calls from people that want some advice about stuff. But then again, I also ask other people to give me advice about the stuff. And as long as I feel that this all works out and we all help each other in what we need, I think this is definitely something that I want a lot of devs to do. Because it really helps save time also.
What specifically helps save time?
Yeah, just for example, let's get back to TikTok. When I know there's like 3 people to do it really well and they each take 30 minutes or 20 minutes to tell me what they're doing, and I can find some points that they're all doing, then I'm definitely going to try those instead of doing lots of experiments and figuring that out on my own.
Understood. Yeah, that's very helpful. And these are quite simple morals, which I can appreciate. It's about enjoyment and exchange.
Probably.
That's very nice.
Maybe probably there are more.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like not so many are needed. Simple seems good to me too. Hey, I have a kind of a last selfish question here, and that might be a longer form. And I brought back for another interview series, I had a bunch of quickfire questions that are, let's say, simple to ask, but not necessarily easy to answer.
What is time?
Yeah, what is life? Who are you? That's me. Hello. And I thought it would be nice to bring them back here now that Florian and I are doing this together, and we both can go more into our specific topics. So I want to ask you a last regular question, and then I would love to go with you into these quickfire questions.
Let's
see how you fare. Okay. So we asked you jokingly in the beginning. This time I'm going to be serious. What advice would you give us, Florian and I, for this podcast in terms of community and audience building? Because let's be honest, I think not many people have been listening to this, but now Florian and I are building more of a tag team here, and I think we want to be bring this to more people, because I think we're doing something good. So what is your advice for us?
Have you tried asking the people what they want to hear?
Good.
Actually, we have, yeah.
Good.
Have we gotten any response?
Actually, we have not.
Maybe we need to ask them in a better way, huh?
Yeah. Maybe then just really pick 10 people and figure out what they want to hear and start from there. Like specifically asking, not just, hello, internet, what do you want to hear? But like pick 10 people where you think, okay, this is somebody that we believe is our target listener group. Ask them what they want, and hopefully what they want is similar to what, your target group wants in general.
Yeah, that's a good start.
That is a good start.
I would do the same for a game.
Sorry,
what did you say?
I would do the same for a game.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the type of game, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, podcast simulator.
Podcast Simulator 2021, bro. Anything else or something else?
Are you also, I'm always thinking that more places to post is always better in the beginning. I don't know if in the long run, is it a paid or is it a free podcast?
It's free.
And then I would just put it in as many places as I can. Hey, how about you start TikTok? Just upload it also like on YouTube or on other places. Every single bit of traffic that you can just automatically gain from a platform because you're putting it there, can help leverage the podcast overall, right? So instead of trying to bringing all your own traffic and have it on that's the same as with the development diaries, right? Or with the devlog. Why have it on your own website when you can post it somewhere where it can have bigger reach just because it's in another place?
Since this topic has come up for the second time now, I will say, as a previous devlog writer on my own webpage, you reach your own audience. That's true. But, the questions you asked are completely valid. Like, you always ask yourself, am I reaching anybody else? But of course, I mean, you don't only write it on your own website and then it's just there. You also share it in other places. And, I think for me personally, when I started that, it fulfilled different purposes. One of them was, since I came from a completely different background and I didn't know anything about games marketing whatsoever, this was a start for me to learn how the team functioned, how each role worked. And I would also interview them and give them like prompts to tell me what they did that week. And so I would learn about the production process. And in the meantime, I would generate content for the website as well. And then obviously share it on socials and so on. So yeah, that process of keeping a diary or a log of what's happening is really helpful to look back to. But I feel like this podcast now has become our half-hour session where we talk to each other about how to help each other out in marketing.
I also feel that it's cool to have it on your own website. You can totally put it there. But sometimes people are like just posting the link on Twitter and something. Hey, this is a new development log for my game. Done. Instead of finding a more interesting way, like maybe have little bits and pieces from it as separate tweets, and then here is how that went, or just kind of more catchy stuff that works better on other social media platforms. Or if you can turn it into a video with low effort where you just interview people. So you go to the person's desk and you ask them what they did and they quickly show you on the computer. You have a completely different format again that you can use on other platforms too, and so on and so on.
Very nice. Thanks for the advice.
Sure.
I always like to ask experts for selfish advice because why not? You're here after all.
I'll think a little bit about it. I've never thought about how to advertise a podcast before, so if I have a good idea, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I hope maybe somebody else who might be listening can gain something from it too. That's the nice thing of asking things in public, which leads us to my quickfire questions for you. So, of course, the idea is it's a quick question. You answer kind of quick from your belly. But of course, if you have something a longer story to tell, that's fine too. We have time after all.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. My first question is, what is the purpose of your being?
That's even harder than the time question. Probably helping.
Good. What inspires you?
People that achieve things against odds, nature, and just really great books, games, and films in general. What
is a beautiful day to you? And I did not know that you were interested in beautiful days, but I have had this on my list before. So what's a beautiful day to you?
So if it's summer, usually involves me spending at least an hour where there is water. Very simple. I think being in charge of my own time, making my own decisions and seeing how they turn out.
Very nice. What is something you believe that you think most people would disagree with?
I don't know. This is a difficult one. Maybe you can give me some cutting time here while I'm thinking.
Maybe.
Maybe.
We will see.
No, I really don't like that a lot of people are not paying a lot of attention to other people and other beings for some reason. I always feel like when I'm going somewhere, I don't know if I am paying too much attention, but like it doesn't happen that I'm stepping on somebody's foot or like once in a blue moon or something. And I feel like people are constantly stepping on my feet. And I don't know if it's blue moon, if it's a coincidence that it's blue moon for them, for all of them in one day or something, or if they're just not paying attention to me, and to other things also. So maybe one weird thing that I'm doing is, when it's raining and there is like, rainworms on the street, I pick them up and put them back on the grass and everybody else just walks over them. And I'm kind of like, aren't they also beings that don't want to be walked over as my feet are too? Yeah. But then again, it's also weird because, now it's getting very psychological and, again, stuff, philosophical, because then again, I also feel like I am a being and there is like tiny beings right now on my hand that I can't even see. And if I just clap them together, they're also dying. So it's kind of weird that the rainworms matter and these don't. So it's probably all a thing of perspective, I guess. Yeah, that was
well said. This question sets up controversy from the get-go. Probably one of the hardest questions to answer. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to have it in this quickfire round, but this was nice.
It's a fun question. It's just a hard question.
Yeah, we will see what happens with it in the future. Do you have books that you often recommend or like to give to people or that have influenced you? 1, 2, 3, whatever you feel like.
So for community building, I read Tribes from Seth Godin, which I found very useful back then. I haven't read it in a long time now, so I should actually go back and read it again. But I remember that when I read it, when I first started out with community development, I was like, what? Really? Cool. So I'm wondering if I would still be as astonished if I read it again today, or if I have just implemented all of the knowledge in my normal thinking already. But
you would probably enjoy it again, because
I would probably
good
enjoy
books
it again.
Always come back around the second time, and you're like, "What? I didn't even know that was in there." You know, all the stuff you skip while you're reading, even though you don't intend to. Okay, so that's Tribes by Seth Godin.
Then recently I read Blood, Sweat and Pixels by Jason Schreier, I think he's called. I really like that because it just shows that it's not that easy to make games, and it kind of helps me to understand that, it's really hard and other people are struggling with it too. Even like big studios who did it multiple times. That kind of helps me to put my expectations into perspective, that everything is always going smoothly.
These are the two you would share with us today?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So Tribes by Seth Godin and Blood, Sweat and Pixels by Jason Schreier. What is the change you want to see in the world?
I feel that we're currently starting to go in a good direction. So we have finally become aware of what we are doing as humans. I mean, not all of us still, but a good part of us is starting to understand it. And a good part of us is starting to do things against it, like, reducing waste, reducing CO2, eating less meat, and so on. So I hope more people inform themselves about what we as humans have an influence on the world and try to make it better, a better place again.
Okay, and the question that follows that is, how do you contribute to it?
I mostly stopped eating meat. I still cannot stop eating bacon, but I always feel guilty when I do, it's so good, almost crying while I eat it. But really trying to reduce also milk and cheese and everything, and trying to inform myself a bit better when I should be eating what. So it's actually like locally grown, trying to produce less waste also. I think that I'm still flying too much. It's kind of, I really want to go places, but it's kind of stupid that I'm going places. It's kind of a weird, a weird thing.
That's a difficult one. Yeah.
Right.
You're going to figure it out eventually.
Yeah.
What works for you.
Yeah.
Have you lost anything on your way that you would like to get back?
On my way to the current day?
I would say so.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work quite a bit harder when I still believed that I just have to reach the point where I need my own studio and then I will be happy. And since then, I've slowed down quite a bit. And sometimes I feel like, if I had this belief again, I could pull a few more all-nighters and get ahead on the track faster. But then that is exactly the thing we talked about before. But it's not really the goals that motivate me anyway. So I'm not sure. I lost it and I want to find it, but I'm kind of still glad I lost it.
Cool. Okay. Almost the last question. What is something that you haven't done yet, which you would like to do?
I want to write a fantasy book at some point.
It was funny when you said the sentence, you said, I want to write, and I was like, what is it going to be? A boat? A helicopter? A very fast motorcycle? Oh, right. Okay. Right. Okay. That's just my brain interfering. Cool. What would your fantasy book be about?
There's a couple of ideas. I don't want to spoiler now. You will see.
Imagine it would take place in some kind of town or city, and the town would be in a beautiful landscape, but really, it's a wandering giant creature. You thought about that?
Wow.
Well, yes, it could totally be a book about one of our games. So I recently started collaborating with an author friend of mine to write a niche book. So she kind of wrote the first few chapters and we designed the overall story together. And now we're sending it out to publishers. So I'm kind of writing a fantasy book now, for niche. But at some point I want to write a completely independent from any game that we're doing fantasy book. And, I'm thinking about it while swimming.
Nice.
At some point it will maybe happen.
Nice. I think I will read it. I would love to read a book written by you. Very cool. Yo, this was fun. And the last question here that I've written down is, how can people find you? Where should they connect with you, look you up, and say hi?
Twitter's probably the easiest place. It's just at Philomena Schwab. In one word, you can just drop me a DM or tag me if you want to know anything. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you very much. This was a very fun conversation.
For me too.
Yeah. Do you have any last words you want to share with the people?
Have fun, make games.
So nice.
Nice one.
So thank you very much. Thank you, Florian, for for joining me and in the future as well.
Thank you and Philomena. It was a great first podcast for me.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys very soon. Yeah. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Hi there. Simon here. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what you hear here and you would like to hear more here, feel free to follow or to subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you get your audio fix. We appreciate you and we promise you to bring you many more insightful conversations with fantastic games industry guests from Berlin and from all over Europe. Thank you very much and see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Hi there. Before you go, this is Florian, Project Manager for GamesNet Berlin Europe. If you want to stay connected to the network, find out more about upcoming events and links to other MediaNet initiatives, you can visit us at gamesnetberlin.eu and subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast, and until next time.